When Lucas arrived into the world, a setback during birth prevented him from walking. Over the years, his parents, Roberto and Marina, abandoned him due to his disability, not knowing that he would one day become someone special. Lucas was 9 years old, and happiness seemed to have not yet knocked on his door. His problems began at the moment of his birth. Positioned inappropriately in the uterus, the baby did not receive ideal treatment due to an error by the medical team. Thus, Luke came into the world with a limitation. When people observed the boy, they saw apparently normal, strong and firm legs. However, for unknown reasons, as he grew, he was unable to crawl or walk. When trying to support himself, intense pain made him cry without stopping. Roberto, his father, tried different approaches to teach him how to walk. He held his son's arms, encouraged small steps, and even used a borrowed walker, but nothing had any effect. The family lacked the necessary resources to investigate and perhaps correct that condition. The years passed, and Lucas grew up without ever stepping foot. While still in the womb, Roberto and Marina placed great hopes on him, perhaps dreaming of a future as a football player, as their father himself imagined. But reality was far from that dream. Lucas's biggest thrill was seeing Roberto on the field and getting an autograph from an athlete. With each goal, Roberto celebrated enthusiastically, while Lucas remained in a wheelchair, leaving his father with a feeling of profound helplessness. Roberto, seeing other happy parents with their children running free, felt cursed. Even though he wanted to enroll Lucas in a specialized boarding school, the costs were prohibitive, added to the high health costs. He worked as a security guard in heavy duties with a modest salary and depended on a government benefit that helped maintain Lucas's basic needs. Despite the help, Roberto resented the situation. He gritted his teeth when he saw friends with perfect children, as if he secretly wished he didn't have that boy. He believed that a son with so many limitations would have no future. Living without high hopes, he prayed for luck, without imagining that she was about to knock on his door. This luck came in the form of an unusual proposal, working as personal security for a rich single socialite named Valeria. Despite never having done this type of work, Roberto accepted for the better salary. Valeria was constantly traveling around the country for advertising engagements, which meant that Roberto would spend long periods away from home. Deep down, I didn't miss Lucas much. The closeness with his wife was replaced by brief moments with Valeria, who had seduced him with her provocative personality. Before long, Roberto and the socialite began a secret romance. Marina discovered the betrayal in the worst way possible. Through social media, when she saw a video in which Valeria proudly showed off her new lover, Roberto was there, kissing her. Marina exploded in fury. Roberto, aware of his betrayal, didn't even bother to apologize. He made it clear that he would not abandon his job or the affair with Valeria, only guaranteeing payment of the pension for Lucas. Thus, Marina found herself alone, facing a son with special needs and an uncertain future. Raising Lucas without support was exhausting for Marina. She couldn't look for a better job or study to advance, as her daily responsibilities took up all her energy. Although she received financial assistance from the government and a good meal voucher, the mother carried a feeling of guilt. She was unable to be the ideal mother. Sometimes he thought about how different his life would be without the burden he carried. Leaving home with Lucas was always an adventure. Her antique, non-motorized wheelchair, donated to her, required effort to navigate. Going to the supermarket took twice as long as it would alone. These delays made Marina lose her patience, wishing she didn't have that child, although she soon regretted her bitter thoughts. One day, Marina needed to go to the market, and there was no way to leave Lucas alone. When they arrived at a busy square, full of people playing sports and walking their dogs, Lucas wanted to drive the chair alone. Marina walked ahead, but Lucas ended up trapped between the sidewalk and the lawn. He tried to get up, but lost his balance and fell, with the chair falling on top of him. The boy began to cry and struggle to free himself. The sound of her crying and fighting caught the attention of those present. Embarrassed and furious, Marina looked back and saw her son lying down, attracting curious looks. Lucas, with his arms extended towards his mother, announced his presence. Upon realizing that everyone knew who the boy's mother was, Marina, with firm steps, decided to move forward to avoid judgment, thinking about how to change her life. As Lucas struggled under the chair, she crossed the square and was lost in the crowd on the other side. In the meantime, a new car stopped nearby. A man disembarked and ran to Lucas, adjusting his wheelchair and helping him. When he realized that there was no one responsible nearby, he placed Lucas in the back seat of the vehicle and, in a soft voice, said, "Little boy, let's go look for your mother, okay?" The boy whimpered softly, asking for his mother. The man, named Felipe, drove for around 30 minutes looking for Marina without success. Not knowing where to go, he decided to take Lucas home. Arriving there, Lucas noticed the size of the house, spacious and well decorated. "You're going to stay here until we find your mother, okay?" said Felipe. Lucas then discovered that his savior was called Felipe, a lawyer who, in addition to offering shelter and affection, tried to track down those responsible for abandoning him. Marina had disappeared from the city, perhaps gone to live with a sister in another state, ignoring all attempts at contact. Felipe managed to locate Roberto with some ease, discovering that he was still with Valeria. When Felipe suggested that Roberto take Lucas to live with him, Roberto replied that he couldn't, as his life was too complicated to change at that moment. Felipe hung up the phone with regret, recognizing the situation of abandonment. How to explain this to Lucas? How could such abandonment be transformed into something that would not revolt him, but would benefit his future? It was a delicate issue, but Felipe believed he had found a solution. The days turned into weeks, and Lucas began to get used to the new routine at Felipe's house. He received a modern electric wheelchair equipped with buttons that allowed him to move more independently. Every day, he adapted more to the environment, attending a school fully prepared for people with disabilities. In the morning, I studied common subjects, and in the afternoon, I practiced adapted basketball with other wheelchair users. He had never imagined stepping onto a court, something he always associated with the football athletes his father so admired. He developed new skills and learned things that seemed far from his everyday life. Felipe offered the young man an affection he had never experienced before. When Lucas played his first high school basketball game, Felipe was in the audience cheering. Even though he was one of the least skilled, Lucas felt like a star with the shouts of encouragement. Despite his happiness, he kept thinking about his biological father, wondering if Roberto would be proud of him as an athlete. He was saddened to realize that he would never get that answer. In a few months, Felipe became a real father to Lucas, who became attached to the lawyer as someone who was always by his side. Felipe had been married, but the relationship quickly fell apart. His wife, unable to get pregnant, discovered that he was sterile, which undermined the lawyer's self-esteem. However, after meeting Lucas, everything started to make sense again. He felt his confidence reborn as he took care of the boy. One day, when picking him up from school, Felipe said he had two pieces of news, one of them difficult. Lucas's heart quickened when he heard, "My lawyers told me that your mother passed away, Lucas. She suffered a brain aneurysm 3 weeks ago and didn't survive. I am really sorry." The young man was paralyzed. Felipe hugged him tightly. Wanting to know how Felipe had found out about what had happened, Lucas was presented with a folder full of documents unknown to him. Felipe took out a piece of paper and pointed, "Look at this. It's a judge's signature. When I asked my office to find your mother, I wanted her signature on this document so I could legally adopt you. And now he says, if you want, from today onwards, you are my son and you can live with me forever." Lucas hugged Felipe tightly. The news fell like a blow. He would never see his mother again, and pain filled his days. Although this was a turning point in life, something even more unexpected would happen. A few weeks after legally becoming Felipe's son, the lawyer decided to take Lucas for a car ride. They stopped in front of a large building with a red cross, a hospital. Lucas associated that place with pain and frustration, memories of the few failed attempts at healing by his biological parents. But Felipe encouraged him to trust and be strong. Inside, Lucas lay down on a machine that resembled a futuristic spaceship. When they returned home, Felipe asked them to have a serious conversation. What he was going to say could transform everything for the boy. Sitting with Lucas, the lawyer revealed that there was a possibility of him walking again. Initially, Lucas doubted it and had to listen again, emotional and wanting to laugh, but he could only cry. Felipe explained that, thanks to a delicate surgery that he could perform, there was a chance for Lucas to walk again, although it depended on the success of his recovery and an arduous rehabilitation process. The surgeon responsible for the operation was a longtime friend of Felipe, an experienced doctor who treated Lucas as if he were sculpting a masterpiece. The surgery was successful, but the real journey was just beginning with intensive physical therapy sessions. At the end of the first month, Lucas dreamed of running and playing basketball with his friends at school. He even imagined sending a video to Roberto, his biological father, but soon realized that his recovery was still a long way off. He needed to not only regain strength in his legs, but also learn to trust them, something he hadn't done since birth. With months of perseverance, Lucas gained confidence and gradually began to walk. When the pain subsided, he left the hospital no longer needing a wheelchair to go to school. His steps were slow and limp, but he stood up on his own. Colleagues applauded when he stood up. Although it still took a while for him to run or play sports normally, Lucas felt fulfilled. He filmed his achievement and sent it to his biological father. Roberto responded with brief words of satisfaction and good wishes, without promising to visit. Felipe consoled Lucas, saying that some people take time to understand what really matters in life. In the following years, Lucas dedicated himself to studies and physical activities. He got to the point where he walked as if he had never had problems with his legs. He hadn't played sports for long, but he loved watching games, a habit he seemed to inherit from his father. Having graduated in medicine, Lucas got a job at the same clinical center where he had been operated on years before by Felipe's friend. From a helpless and abandoned boy, Lucas transformed into an established professional. Felipe lived long enough to see all of Lucas's progress, but unfortunately, he suffered a heart attack at the age of 60. The funeral left Lucas devastated, and it took him more than a month to recover. When he finally resumed his routine, Lucas took advantage of a winter holiday to visit the city's stadium and watch a football match. Upon leaving, shortly after turning off the alarm on his new car, an elderly man approached, asking for help to feed and keep warm. When he opened his wallet to hand over a 20, Lucas froze when he recognized the man's wrinkled and worn-out face. It seemed to be Roberto, his biological father, now poor and helpless. Their clothes were old and unsuitable for the cold. Without understanding why he had hesitated to give the money, the old man looked at Lucas, realizing who he was. "Do you know who I am?" asked Lucas. With his eyes downcast and embarrassed, Roberto confirmed. He gave up on taking the note and turned to leave. Lucas quickly grabbed her arm, asking her not to leave. Roberto, through tears, said it was better for him to leave. "When I lived with you, my life was bad. After I left, I thought everything would get better, but my life went up like a rocket and then plummeted aimlessly," he confessed, with tears in his eyes. Lucas then learned that his father had lived comfortably next to Valeria, but was later abandoned by the socialite and found himself aimless, without a family. Roberto recalled that he had seen a video of Lucas walking, but he couldn't cross the country to see him. He realized that the problem was not Lucas, but rather his own selfishness and ignorance that led him to abandon him. Carefully, Lucas led Roberto to the car, saying that he would be warmer there. "I don't deserve your forgiveness," Roberto said quickly, acknowledging his guilt. "But I still don't forgive you. I just don't want you to freeze to death." Father and son, an elderly, unkempt man and an elegant-looking man, walked